I think on the surface you get surface level information, right? Like a lot of these deals, when you ask for sort of the first memo or memorandum, they'll send you like it's a nice PowerPoint and everything looks great. It looks like one of these, Caribbean vacation packages, right? Everything is kosher. Hey, the business is going to take off. Uh, this is you're going to be set for the rest of your life. But oftentimes you'll see these sort of brochures that look very very fancy and very very pretty. But obviously digging in and understanding the details of what's going on is very very critical, and that's the piece I needed rapid diligence to come in and help me with, is digging in many layers deep, and just letting me know, hey, these are all the things we see that are good, these are all the things that we see are potentially broken, and here are the things that you want to definitely watch for.
Hey everyone, I am so excited to be joined by today's guest. We have Sudhir Bhayankar with us today. He is here to share his incredible story of his acquisition of MLVeda. So just a little bit about Sudhir. Sudhir is a business executive and people leader with 20 years of diverse experience across enterprise software, e-commerce, supply chain, and tech investing domains. Sudhir has a wide range of leadership and consultant experience, but for today in particular, we are going to focus in on Sudhir's prior leadership role with Amazon and how his experience in operations, supply chain, and management shaped his journey to acquire his own business, MLVeda. So his acquisition journey is certainly one to take note of, as he managed to acquire his business from abroad and leveraged his decades of experience to find the perfect asset for his skill set. So I don't want to spoil too much just yet. Let's go ahead and get into it. Sudhir, thank you so much for joining me and being willing to share your story with me today.
Oh, thank you, Sarah. That's a very generous introduction. Thank you.
Well, I'm sure I hardly scratched it. Looking over everything you've done over the past 20 years, like you've certainly done some incredible things. So I hope I can at least capture a fraction of it today. So kick me off. Let's go from the top here. How did your journey at Amazon shape your aspirations to own a business?
Yeah, no, that's a good question, and I think I'd sort of had the notion of owning a business and running a business pre-Amazon. Probably in business school is when that seed was planted. And when I look at Amazon, my path at Amazon and the opportunities I've had at Amazon have been, a lot of them have been very similar to startups, and I consider Amazon as an agglomeration of startups. So you get to do multiple different things in a very, very scrappy environment with tight deadlines and budgets and such. And they're very, very high expectations as well. So I think with that sort of idea, that notion that I had in the past of, hey, at some point in my professional career, I want to run and own a business, actually multiple businesses. Working with Amazon sort of poured fuel on that fire. And yeah, I learned a ton, learned to deal with ambiguity, working with different people, managing teams, scaling teams. So I think all of that sort of prepared me for this journey that I'm on right now.
I love the way you just talked about Amazon. You're talking about how it's like I probably won't get the wording right. A conglomerate of all these different businesses. Basically, you had exposure to one of the top companies in the world, so many different facets of this business model, and you learned a lot along the way. I find it really interesting that you were at Amazon and you had this notion of wanting to own your own business from the start. What strikes me in that is, most professionals, like they'll dream of branching out, but not everyone actually takes that plunge. And so I'm curious, what made you want to go from that high powered role at Amazon to, no, I'm going to do this. I am going to own my own business.
Yeah. It was it wasn't an easy decision. It took me a while to think through it. And for me, this is somewhat philosophical, but I believe like my purpose is in life is growth, right? And growth is sort of a broad term. It could be being a better husband and father, it could be being a better business professional, being a better person in society and such. But to me, the aspect of growth is very important. And for me, I'd made up my mind that at some point I do need to graduate from the corporate world and take the leap and do something on my own. So I think it is. It's all about timing. I wouldn't say I got anything perfect. I was telling my mother this some time back. I said I wish I would have started this journey earlier, but she said, you wouldn't have got all this great experience that you got, and that's 100% true. So for me, it was having this goal and this desire and wanting to challenge myself. I think even at Amazon, I put myself into positions where I would be professionally challenged. and then to grow as an individual, to grow as a business person. And even when I was thinking about this new career path, there were several folks who told me that, hey, things are going well for you. Why do you want to disrupt it and do something different? Who knows what's going to happen? And I don't know what's going to happen, quite honestly. It's been an exciting journey so far, but for me, it was very important to challenge myself and commit to something that I had committed to and aspired to. So when things lined up, I said, okay, fine, this is the right time, and I decided to take the plunge.
When you took the plunge, what was going through your head at the time? What were your feelings? Was it fear, anxiety, calm?
A lot of different emotions, and I think
Mm,
that's I'm sure there are a lot of professionals in this similar position who are thinking they've got really good corporate roles, they're growing in their careers, but they have this aspiration to acquire businesses and such. So I think it's just natural to have these feelings of excitement, anxiety, what's going to happen, the fear of the unknown. But it's also important to have a balanced approach to making decisions, because if you're under pressure, if you're very anxious, you usually won't make good decisions. So I think
mm.
having that calmness at some point, talking to people, talking to advisors, whether it's family, whether it's people in your social circle that you can talk to. So I would say, to answer your question, Sarah, it's all of those emotions, but it's also for yourself, it's finding the signal through the noise, right? And that could be just sort of internalizing some of these discussions. It could be vocalizing your feelings and your aspirations and goals and talking to other people as well. And sometimes you just have this feeling like, look, this is the right thing to do. This is what I should be doing. It's like a gut feeling.
And I think everything you're talking about, it's this beautiful balance of some of the tangible and the tangible experiences you had in tandem with the intangibles. Just knowing, leaping, doing
Yeah.
it, applying it, knowing that mission for growth, like you said, that life mission absolutely does apply to acquiring and how you wanted to go about your daily life. So I'd love to talk to you a little bit more about that and get into your deal story some. So can you walk me through how did the hunt for your perfect business start? Were there specific things you're looking for given your background?
Yeah, there was a sort of a predisposition, or I say bias towards e-commerce businesses, yeah, just because
Okay.
I'd spent so much time in the e-commerce domain. So I started out my search maybe about 2.5 years ago. I don't know if I should call it active or passive. It was, the work was very intense. So I'd maybe spend the weekends or the evenings looking at these various deal sites for deals, talking to people, introducing myself to brokers and
Wow.
such. So I looked at, I don't know, dozens and dozens of deals in the e-commerce space and just didn't really find. I had a checklist, a pretty comprehensive checklist of things that I was looking for
Okay.
in these deals, but just didn't find the right fit. And then there were a few deals that seemed right, but the more discussions I had with the selling team or the broker looking to represent the seller, it just didn't seem like the right fit for me. And then I thought about it some more, and I said, okay, let's sort of keep an open mind. And I started looking at SaaS businesses, so really
Okay.
businesses that would enable e-commerce, D2C and B2B businesses succeed. So building software for e-commerce businesses. And the more I started looking at that, I said, okay, fine, there may be something over here, because e-commerce is on
Mm.
this trajectory of growth. It's going to continue to grow. How can I play a role in enabling sellers sell more effectively or manage their business more effectively? And that sort of changed my search approach a little bit, and started looking at SaaS deals. And that's how I came upon this business. It is one of many, many. I think I looked at about almost 80 deals in the SaaS space.
Wow.
And this is not sort of doing diligence completely on them, but sort of
Right.
talking to sellers, talking to brokers, looking at the at least the initial data set that I had before I made this decision.
I mean, I hear that and I go, how much time? I mean, you were already working full time
Yeah.
and a lot. I'm sure a lot of hours. It's not like you were probably working a pure 40-hour week. Like, how much time were you spending on this outside of your normal job?
It was a good bit in the evenings, I would say, and the weekends, sort of looking at this. But I'd say, Sarah, here's one thing: is if you're a motivated individual, like this doesn't seem like a chore. It doesn't seem like work. It's
Mm,
like, this is super intriguing. Let me learn about this. Let me see what this business is about. And then you start seeing themes and patterns, and so the
mm.
filtering process becomes easier. So I mean, I couldn't tell you exactly how many hours per day I was spending. I was spending a good bit because I was looking at a lot of different deals, but I was learning as well, and to me it was just like, like this is I mean, let me try to put the pieces of the puzzle together, and it's very, very interesting.
Well, I mean, when it's your own thing, it's
Yeah,
your own mission, it's your own business,
true.
of course. I could almost see that being like a little bit addicting in a way. It's like just
Yeah.
keep learning, keep finding, keep going. So, talk to me about when MLVeta crossed your path. What elements really resonated with your acquisition vision?
Yeah. I think the key elements for me were established business. The company had been around for about 10 years or 9 years at that time.
Okay.
The seller was someone who I, built a good relationship with, and I think that is for me a very, very important piece. It wasn't a part of my checklist initially, but the more I got into speaking with sellers, it was like, look, if this thing doesn't click with the person I'm buying this business from, because I've got to learn from them as well. I'm not going to like take on the business at day one and be an expert. And do I trust this person? Is this a high integrity individual? Do they have like a level of intelligence where they can share, hey, these are the things I think you should be pursuing and such. So I think the seller piece was a big component as well. The business was profitable, had a good team in place, very, very low attrition rate. So those to me were three big factors that stood out. Obviously, financials, the technology and such. But I'd say those were the three key pieces that stood out for me.
Okay. So, talk to me about the deal and how that unfolded for you.
Ooh, it took a while.
Okay.
It took longer than expected, and I'd say like I was the bottleneck, if anything, because I was working full time, and when I'm working at something, I'm going to give it my all. And
Yep.
this sort of got pushed to the back burner a little bit. So if anything, I was the bottleneck, and it took longer than it should have. Just the overall process in terms of doing diligence on the company, asking for the appropriate documents and such. But yeah, it took a bit, and then lining up. Initially, I was thinking of going in with another set of investors, all in equity, but that would mean carving the company out. And then more I got into that, looking at that deal structure and sort of the terms, that piece didn't work out for me. I just didn't want to give up the company for the value that I thought I was being offered by the investors who had committed. So I axed that and then put in more equity myself. Finding a lender was a little bit of a challenge as well because this deal was an international deal. So a lot of
Okay.
the traditional lenders were like, we can't really help you with this. It's not enough information. I was like, no, there's 10 years
Mm.
of information over here. It's just that
Mm.
it's in a different country, and sure, the accounting, formats are a little bit different, but they have all the information. But that yeah, finding a lender was a little bit of a challenge, but that worked out as well. But like I said, if anything, I should have accelerated this process, but it took longer than expected.
Okay. It's interesting because I'm thinking in two different directions here. You just mentioned that the company was based overseas. From my understanding, is based out of India, and
Correct.
you were doing this deal from the U.S. I mean, that's not a that's not a deal that you run across, a deal story you'd run across every single day.
Yeah.
I've talked to a lot of people who have gone through their own deals, and very rarely do I hear of someone going, "Yep, I went for buying this different company in a different country." So I would love to hear more on that. That's just fascinating to me. Tell me about maybe some of the challenges associated with that and some of those pivotal moments in the deal that caused challenge or anxiety, but also excitement along the way.
Yeah. I consider myself a rookie in the acquisition space. I've made investments in the past in companies, and I, sort of function as a limited partner with a few other companies as well, and serve in an advisory capacity. But this is sort of the all-in, like I own it 100%.
Mm.
And yeah, there were several folks that told me like, hey, this is it's not based in the U.S. It's not even in Canada. This is 10,000 miles away in a different country altogether. But you sure you want to do this? And for me, it was all about the business. I mean, things lined up. I spent half my life in India, so I understand the
Okay.
culture. I wouldn't say I'm a business person. I haven't worked or run businesses in India, but I think I know enough about the culture to sort of understand that aspect. But yeah, the fact that it was an overseas business, obviously the accounting, when you look at the books, there are different accounting principles and such. But I was lucky enough to get introduced to some really good lawyers, accountants who've done transactions like this, who were able to give me advice and sort of work along with me to close this deal. And I think that for me gave me a lot of confidence. I don't think if I had people who had those type of credentials, who've done this in the past, who had that track record of, hey, we've done these type of deals in the past, we can assist you. For me, that would have been somewhat of a challenge. I think from an apprehension standpoint, I go back to the whole story about, the seller. And oftentimes you hear these stories where, the seller gets their money and they disappear. They're done. They're gone.
Yeah.
Like they're off to some island, doing what they want to do, and they don't answer your emails, phone calls. So I remember that first large wire that I was going to send. I was in the process of sending, and I remember sitting at the bank, and the banker was saying, "You sure you sure this is the right amount? You sure you want to send this?" Like, yeah, I do. Hit send.
Wow.
Let's go.
Oh
But
gosh.
but in my mind, I was thinking, is this person right? Should I not send this? And what if I sent it and then the seller just like got up and left? What do I do?
Hmm.
So yeah, I guess. But that's when I think about it, it's a little bit childish of me to think about it that way. But yeah, sure, there was a little bit of apprehension, but yeah, it worked out just fine.
Uh, Valid. I think all that sounds quite valid. I can't imagine going and being literally at the bank and someone going, "Are you sure you want to do this?" It's like, that's the last thing you want to hear when you're about to send off
But
money
yeah,
for a business. Um, but what's interesting is I was just talking to someone today about, and I think this is especially in the world of online businesses, is leveraging your skill set. You were already doing a deal that was quote unquote different. It's an overseas deal. You're kind of having to go physically into a bank where they're going like, what is this? You're sending to who? To where?
yeah,
Um, and yet, it sounds like from what you're saying is you might have been leaning into some unique strengths that you had to be able to acquire the right business. And I think there's a lot of power in that when it comes to acquisitions is you went, okay, I spent half of my life living in India. I get the culture. I may not have acquired before, but I know enough to do this. And I have tons of experience from Amazon and X, Y, and Z. Where they're sort of even through some of those pitfalls or I would say challenges in the process, were you going little aha moments along the way of like, no, this actually this resonates. Like I've got this, I've got that. I can make this work.
yeah. There certainly were a few, sure,
Okay.
especially in this line of business. There are going to be road bumps along the way. For example, I thought, okay, I was going to go all in. I didn't want to have, initially I said, hey, no debt, go in all equity. I like the investors that I was working with. I still do. uh, but yeah, when that didn't work out, and I said, look, it didn't work out because I chose not to go down that path. And I said, should I do the right thing or not? And then I said, okay, fine. Went down the path of raising debt for this. That didn't go very well. There were a bunch of folks that said no, we can't do it, too risky. But then yeah, when people start saying yes, it's like, okay, fine, maybe this is a sign, this is a signal that okay, things are going to just play out just fine. So I think yeah, along the way there were few moments, and I think again, talking some of the discussions I had with the seller, and I don't know, Sarah. Sometimes you just know when you're talking to people. At least for me,
Mm-hmm.
I can just tell like, okay, is this person genuine? Are they high integrity? And I remember the last few discussions I had before I sort of made these large wire transactions. Is like I said, look, I don't want to get screwed over, and not in those terms. Um, and these are the things that I want to make sure that are in place. Like, are you committed? I don't need anything on paper. I just need your word. Just make sure that this happens. I don't want the team to sort of exit all of a sudden. After the acquisition happens, I don't want you to disappear. I need your help. And I think yeah, just some of those conversations, like that okay, fine. I had those discussions, and I said, okay, fine. Like this is right. So
Okay.
maybe it's a little spark, a little like, okay, I got this. This is going to work out. So yeah, I think maybe a few of those signals along the way. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I think people listening to this who've maybe been in your shoes before can very likely see themselves and see their own journeys and how it compares to yours. You do have to look for some of those moments. You look for obviously the details, and we're going to go into due diligence here in a minute and talk about that process. But yeah, some of the other qualities as well is just a bit of knowing.
Right.
I'd love to talk to you about where the company is today though. So I mean, how did that deal close, and since you've acquired it, where is MLVeda now?
Yeah, things are going well with the business. I wouldn't say we're growing as fast as I had planned to. And again, I think there's certain things that I could have done. I made the acquisition. I closed the acquisition end of October of last year, so it'll be almost a year in 25 days.
Happy anniversary.
Yeah, thanks. And I was still working at Amazon. I'd committed, to getting things done. I'd made the acquisition. I said, okay, fine, let the company sort of run. It's doing well as it is. I don't need to mess with the company too much. So let it run on autopilot for a bit. Gave some instructions in terms of what I would like to have happen, and then Q4 just sort of went by. It was a blur. I'd gone back to India for vacation, and then obviously went to meet the folks at the company, spend some time, introduce myself. And I realized, when I got back in January, I said, look, I can't do both. I can't sort of work my corporate role and try to grow this business aggressively. Something's got to give. I can't do both. And I made the conclusion that, okay, fine, I'm going to go full time into this and really grow the business at the rate that I wanted to. So I left Amazon end of February. But that time period from making the acquisition to when I actually exited my corporate career, I think that time, I wish I could have had that time back because I would have done, things a little bit differently. Um, the company is primarily an app business, so we develop apps for some of the large e-commerce platforms.
Okay.
And what we recently launched, this is maybe about 3 months ago, is a solutions and services business focused on enterprise businesses. And it took a little bit of time to get off the ground, but that has started doing very well. And to me, that's going to be a force multiplier of the business. If we're on track, when I look month over month, year over year, or same month, year over year, we were at almost about a 20%, 25% growth, same month, year over year. And hopefully that is in the 50 to 55%, this month and going into November. But
Wow.
that part of the business is really taken off. The app business is sort of very, very stable at this point, but the services solutions piece is the exciting part of the business right now.
I mean, it sounds like you've gotten quite a lot done in just under a year, and still seeing some growth. I mean, that's just
Yeah.
quite impressive. Um, Especially, granted, I think obviously there's this online element to this business, but coming from an online business background myself, I'm used to hearing that things take way more time. It's a little bit slower to implement some of those changes, but it sounds like you were able to really get in there and start launching things, changing things at a pretty
Yeah,
rapid
yeah,
pace.
I'd say so. And like I said, I took some time, after that Q4, and like I said, I wish it had moved sooner. And again, you could say I wish I'd moved sooner, but there could be pros and cons to that as well. Like I think one of
Right.
the key takeaways in my career that I found, whether it's leading a new team or launching a new product or a new service or defining a new process, is you want to be careful about how much change you make and how much friction you introduce into the system, right? At the end of the day, people are involved, and you don't want to go in there saying, "Hey, let's start, changing all of this stuff, and this is the new direction we're going to take." And I think we'll talk about that in just a bit, but that's, I think, to me, an important piece. Maybe I was wrong, maybe I was right, but I think you know, not introducing change too fast is sometimes a good thing. More often than not, it is a good thing.
100% agree. Well, we can definitely get into that a little bit more. I did want to talk to you about when you were in the process of like ensuring that this business was right for you. I understand that you worked with Rapid Diligence to help you in that process. So walk me through, how did Rapid Diligence come into the picture? And was it after you zeroed in on MLVeta, or was it even before that? Were they helping you find your acquisition?
Yeah, it was before I zeroed in on this company,
Okay.
and I felt I needed a partner, trusted partner in this space, someone who's done this before, someone who has experience in this space. So someone made the introduction to me to Ahmed and team at Rapid Diligence,
Okay.
and the team was just great to work with. Helped me source some deals, and then so it was sort of a dual effort. I'd be sourcing, Rapid Diligence was sourcing as well, and then we'd sort of combine notes and see, okay, fine, hey, we think this makes sense, or this might not make sense. And then when I dialed in on this company, ML Veda, That's when we were off to the races, and we can talk about it in more detail in terms of exactly like the mechanics of the overall diligence process.
Absolutely. Well, yeah, let's dive into it. We're now talking about you guys are coming to the table. Everyone's bringing the potential deals, and you're working on sourcing together. How did they come in on the due diligence front? Maybe even structuring of your deal. Just walk me through that
Yeah.
process.
Yeah. I think on the surface you get surface level information, right? Like a lot of these deals, when you ask for sort of the first memo or memorandum, they'll send you like it's a nice PowerPoint and everything looks great. It looks like one of these, Caribbean vacation packages, right? Everything is kosher. Hey, the business is going to take off. Uh, this is you're going to be set for the rest of your life. But obviously, like I'm not saying a lot of people do that, but oftentimes you'll see these sort of brochures that look very, very fancy and very, very pretty. But obviously, digging in and understanding, the details of what's going on is very, very critical now. For me, I have some level of understanding from a tech standpoint and then financial standpoint, but I just didn't feel confident in my skill set alone. Like I could deconstruct the financials and reconcile accounting entries and such, or look at the company's tech stack and know that, look, is this one person who's built a whole bunch of legacy code and that's sort of sitting in the background. So I really needed someone to go in and both from a tech standpoint and a financial standpoint to be able to double click and go in like layers deep and understand, okay, is this set up? Are there any flags? And if so, what those flags are? And usually you will find flags. I'd be very surprised if you don't come across red flags when you do diligence. But the question is, okay, fine, is there a reason for that, right? And if there isn't a compelling reason, then yeah, you might want to think about the business differently. But if there's a strong reason saying, hey, this is what happened, this is why sales dip, we had this event happen, and that caused this to take place, or this is why we had this expense, or this is why we've built the tech stack a certain way, as long as there's a sound reasoning for it, then you can live with it and you can sort of build a contingency around it or plan for it. And that's the piece I needed Rapid Diligence to come in and help me with, is digging in many layers deep, and just letting me know, hey, these are all the things we see that are good. These are all the things that we see are, potentially broken. And here are the things that you want to definitely watch for. So that's what the team at Rapid Diligence really helped me on.
Yeah, it's interesting you're talking about these layers to it, and obviously when you're looking at different deals at once, I can't imagine how overwhelming that could be. Um, I love the way you said that the Caribbean vacation package, what it seems like on the surface versus really what's happening here. Like, why is it so pretty on the surface? What is it that you're covering up back there? And, tell me if this is any stories we can dig in on or not. But was there anything that you came across while looking at different deals that because you were working with Rapid Diligence, they were really able to say maybe save you from getting into one deal too deep, or found some really bad red flag that maybe you just wouldn't have been able to find on your own? And tell me if I'm making that up, but just out of curiosity.
Yeah, no, there were a couple of examples for sure. Like when we clicked in and sort of tried to understand, what's really going on over here. Why do the numbers look so good? It's like I remember there was one company, e-commerce company, that was in the automotive business, if I remember right. Yeah, little automotive accessories. You know, revenue looked fantastic. Super growth trend, somewhat profitable. But then when you start looking at the marketing expenses, they, they'd sort of accounted for their marketing in different non-traditional ways, which I thought was, I guess you could argue, depending on, which accountant prepared it, one could say, hey, this is the right way to do it. But it was, their revenue was growing because they'd spent so much in marketing. And once you sort of, let's just say you stopped all that marketing, like the revenue would just dip. So those are businesses that are propped up not on organic growth, like you're spending 95 cents to get a dollar worth of sales, and those sort of businesses are not worth it. So yeah, there were examples like that. I think there was another one where I think the it was a SaaS business, but just legacy SaaS business, and trying to rebuild their code or their architecture and ramp it up to something newer or more relevant would just take an enormous lift. So yeah, I think yeah, there were flags like that. That for someone like me who is somewhat new to this, doing diligence on companies, this is where like a good partner could come in and really, really assist you and basically save a lot of your time and effort.
Absolutely. Given the unique nature of MLVeda, how did Rapid Diligence assist ensuring that technical and operational due diligence was on point for this particular business?
Yeah, the two concerns I had was well, I had three concerns. One is the employees need to stay, the employees can't
Okay.
leave, and obviously that's not the diligence team's concern. But the other two were
Mm,
from a tech stack, and then from a financial standpoint, like are
okay.
things clean?
Mm,
And that's where the rapid diligence team came in. It helped. And you do have to go multiple layers deep. You do have to check and validate, make sure things are set up the way they need to be, so that when you want to scale the business, you're able to scale on a platform or a foundation that's solid. It's not like broken or doesn't have cracks in it. So
right.
the tech front was one thing that I needed a lot of assistance on. It took a good bit of time, but it was the right thing to do. And then obviously the financials, this being a international company or international acquisition, having someone who's somewhat familiar with rules and regulations from an accounting standpoint in India, and making sure again that the books are sure this is a profitable business, but like is everything accounted for the way it should be accounted for? So taking that sort of reverse engineering it, okay, what if this were a US entity? What would that look like, right? And making sure that things lined up. So those are things that I wouldn't have been able to do, both
Mm.
on the tech assessment and then on the financial side. So that's really where the rapid diligence team came in and went, like I said, many, many layers deep. And again, the output was not, hey, everything looks great, like you should go for it. It's like, okay, fine, this is green, this is yellow, this is red. Like
Mm.
this is where the opportunities are, and this is what looks good. So
Amazing. You know, when I talk to a lot of people who have gone and acquired for the first time, it's often said this is like their baby. This is the biggest transaction of their life. There's a lot at stake. And so seeing that, this was your first acquisition, it's not a small acquisition. What did it mean to you personally to have rapid diligence with you in that process and making sure that everything checked out and everything was going to be okay?
yeah, I think it's important to have, and I keep using the word trusted partner, and that's the relationship that we developed. Uh, because there are a number of diligence firms out there. And for me personally, I prefer if I can build a relationship with someone and it's not transactional. I spoke with a number of different teams before I settled on rapid diligence. And I just felt that there's a relationship over here. This individual, Ahmed, he cares. He wants to make sure that I succeed, and he's in it. He's in the fight with me. Whereas I think some of the other teams that I've worked with are just I'm just a number, and that was my perception. I may be completely wrong, but to me that was an important element. And I think my advice to folks embarking on this journey is you can do a lot of the work yourself, and I would encourage you to do some portion of the heavy lifting, but have a partner with you that can has a second set of eyes and can really check you and because these things, if you're doing diligence in a number of companies, it starts to blend together after some time, and you start losing track of like what's going on over here. So that way, I think having a partner that you can trust and rely on for diligence is, I think, absolutely essential.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I can't imagine, like what you just said, you kind of hit the nail on the head. Like everything starts to blur together. You're looking at all these different businesses. I mean, those flags, God forbid the flags start getting mixed up, right? When you have the
True.
flags over here for one business and flags over here for the other business, you need somebody with you in your corner, which is why I wanted to ask, what that was like. Looking back on your deal, is there something like you'd wish you'd known before you gotten started?
Here's the thing: when you're working on these deals, the amount of time this could take, and I say that because you also want to be professional and courteous and respectful of others' time, because the seller is talking to multiple people as well, right? And you don't want to drag things out too long. So I think the aspect of just knowing, okay, this is not something that's going to happen, in 48 hours. I think maybe in some cases you can make it happen, but for the most part, it's not going to take that short amount of time. So sort of knowing that in advance would have prepped me to allocate my time uh, better, ask probably more intelligent, more probing questions early on. So I think if I took away anything, it would be that is it's going to take time. Be prepared for that, and if you ask the right questions, you can accelerate your position as well. If I could do things differently, that's what I would have done. Allocate more time, ask better questions, move the process on faster.
Okay. Would you say that you had like I'll call it an aha moment in this whole process of acquiring a business. So maybe that aha moment was like a moment when things felt like they paid off, or maybe things felt rewarding, or like it felt like it all came together. Does any of that resonate with you? Do you feel like you can pinpoint a certain period of time where
Uh,
you really felt like this is it?
I think post acquisition for sure. Give you an example, Sarah, is I talked about running an app business and then a enterprise services business, and I just like my background pre Amazon was in the tech consulting sector, and I worked a lot with enterprise software. So I sort of have an understanding of how that business model works, and I wanted to use a similar playbook over here. And we got the first few deals in, and I said, okay, fine, this is good. Is it luck? Maybe, maybe not. But then we started getting repeat. The same customer wants to come back to us, and they have a much bigger project for us. I said, okay, fine. Like when we got that first repeat deal, which was 10x the size of the first deal, we went in with a very very small project just to get our foot in the door. We liked working with this customer. We thought they're super professional, great to work with, and we'd love to be able to position ourselves where they come back to us and say, "Hey, we'd love for you to work with us on this project." When that happened, for me that was a moment I said, "Okay, fine. Like this is not a fluke. If we position ourselves correctly, we find the right clients, build trust. Like this is a flywheel that can gain momentum." So I would say that for me was a aha moment post acquisition.
Okay, that's amazing. How great to have that growth and kind of building on things like, okay, this is working out. I'd love to know, has this acquisition changed the trajectory of your career, your life, your personal aspirations?
Uh, um, it's changed for sure. It's changed the trajectory. We'll see. And my goal is again, it's to build repeatable processes over here within this company, to ensure that my team is highly motivated. I'm able to give them what they need, and they have a sense of fulfillment. But really to make sure that I can, with this overall game plan that I have for both the people and the business, once I've got this business on the path that I feel confident that okay, we're moving in the right direction, and we are. It's just that can I take hands off the wheel? When can I do that? And I do feel in the next 12 to 18 months I'll get back into looking at. I am looking at acquisitions, but not as actively as I. It's like sort of okay, this is nice, this is interesting, more to educate myself, but I'll get back into it. Like I said, actively.
Amazing that you're back in that the acquisition seat again. That's incredible. I think if you were to neatly wrap up this whole package, your journey, your experience, which I think is hard to do, so bear with me. What would be one golden nugget of wisdom that you could share with others who are aspiring to do something similar?
One. I,
Share as many as you'd like. If you are just out there throwing golden nuggets, go for it.
yeah,
I won't be
I would.
mad.
Um, I would say, a few things I would say is you've got to persevere. You have to be persistent. If this is your goal and you've decided this is what you want to do, you have to like lean in 110%. Like it's no
Okay.
ifs, buts, maybe, I think so. Like just do it. If you want to do it, just go for it, right? So you've got to be persistent, right? You've got to be willing to have patience because a lot of people are they're going to tell you no after a long period of time when you think they're going to say yes. So you've got to have patience for sure. And then you've got to build like consistent routines. Otherwise, you'll drive yourself crazy because then you're sort of trying all these different things and you don't know what's working, what's not. So, I'd say have a consistent routine. Like this is what I'm going to do for my outreach. This is what I'm going to do when I'm in this phase, phase one, phase two, phase three. I think those are the key things I would say is you got to be persistent, you've got to have patience, and then you've got to be consistent. You've got to like build a routine for yourself that's consistent. And it's just like practicing a sport. Like these are all the three characteristics I think you've got to have to be successful in a sport. So yeah, I don't know if those are bronze nuggets or something else, but hopefully they're helpful.
I think so, because there's certainly a science to acquiring, but there's a bit of an art to it as well, right? And I think people don't realize that to acquire, it is a journey. You have to practice. You have to get in there and get in the driver's seat as you have, and look at those deals, find the right support. It's not going to happen in 48 hours, like you mentioned.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
it's going to be one of those journeys that unfolds over time. I'm very curious to know, with ML Veda, what's your next chapter? What is that looking like for you?
Yeah, I really think it's for this company, we really want to get into the enterprise solution space. I've got the background, I understand the industry fairly well. And the more and more I speak to e-commerce leaders, D2C and B2B, it's very apparent that there's a need over here.
Hmm.
And anyone that can service this need, and sometimes these leaders in these companies, founders, they don't know what they don't know. And when they have someone who has the expertise and specific subject matter knowledge and can show them, hey, this is the path, this is what you can do to sort of automate to scale, that to them is an aha moment. Like, shoot, why didn't I think of this earlier? How come I haven't spoken to anyone, with sort of this idea? And it's not that we have some novel ideas. It's just a need out there that I don't think a lot of people are paying attention to. And so I see us positioning ourselves, being a service provider and a partner in that space.
Maybe this is something, it comes to mind, and as we're talking about ML Veda, but is it even possible to compare your experience when you were managing teams, running things at Amazon versus ML Veda? Did you have any expectations about your former experience and how maybe your actual experience played out when you acquired and started running this business?
Yeah, yeah. I'd say, one thing is expectation management uh, is essential. It's all about expectation setting, and it's all about how you treat and work with people. It's all about how you lead. I knew for a fact, because I've done this a few times. Like, I said, okay, fine, I make this acquisition, and then I can't be that guy who walks in the door the first day and says, look, we're changing everything, and this is my expectation. That's a guaranteed way for people to leave and you to have massive attrition. I've made that mistake in the past in my corporate career, and I certainly learned from it very, very quickly and didn't make that same mistake again. But I'd say the bar has always been high for me. Like, I'm not a person that said, okay, fine, I don't think this team has a skill set. Maybe I should just sort of lower my expectations. Now that's a way to run a mediocre business, and your output's going to be mediocre. But here's the thing: when you have a high bar, you can't just walk in there and say, hey, everybody's got to meet this bar or else. It's like, you can't do that. You've got to go in there and say, okay, fine. What is the skill set of the team? How can I coach them? How can I develop them? What are they lacking? Now, if they lack will, Sarah, that's a different story altogether. Like, it's difficult to coach on will, but you want to also seek to understand, like, okay, how do I motivate this individual? But if it's you've got the hunger, you have the passion, which this team has, I'm going to invest in training and development, giving them the tools that they need to succeed, and only then can you say, okay, fine, like, my expectations here, I want you to meet that. Like, otherwise, it's unreasonable. So I think for any leader, whether you're starting a new position or you've acquired a company and you're leading it as the CEO of the business, it's deeply understand the people you're working with, because they make or break the organization. It's not the technology. It's not like, that's my personal opinion. You've got to lean in and you've got to make sure that they have the tools necessary to succeed. Only then is it reasonable to raise the bar. Otherwise, you're asking them to perform, when they don't have the practice to get there, right? So, all the tools to get there.
I think that's fantastic advice. And it's great how you said, I did this in the past and it didn't work. I learned from it quickly and I was able to apply it in my own context to my own business. And you said early on in the interview that people are so important. And just based on everything you said, it sounds like you're really leaning into understanding your team, how people work, the will to learn, grow, and do better, and then understanding that the bar and how you perform, what your output is, relates to that. Early on, you were talking about this drive, personal drive in your life for growth. And I'm just wondering if you feel like, in retrospect, this acquisition, this journey, you feel like you're able to, I say, tick that box for yourself in a way. And if so, what other ways do you plan on trying to grow personally and within your business in the future through your acquisition?
Yeah, yeah. I'd say I don't know if I'd check the box just yet. I'm sort
Okay.
of still learning And to me, like this is the operator to me speaking, it's all about continuous improvement. Like to me, there's no single point where, okay, this is perfect, right? It's all about, are you getting better? It's a journey. And for me, I'm on a journey over here of, growth, of continuous improvement. My goal is to build out this portfolio, make more acquisitions that make sense, obviously, and continue to build out a meaningful portfolio where I'm really pleased about what the business is doing. I love working with the people in those businesses. So I think for me, I'm learning along the way over here. I see I have a roadmap that I have for myself. At this point, I'd say, I'm still refining the playbook, you know, and I wouldn't quite check the box off just yet, but it's certainly something that's challenging me from a time standpoint. I just love what I'm doing. So I think it doesn't matter if you're in a challenging situation or you're going through a tough time. If you're doing what you really want to do and enjoy doing, then even the tough times, like you get creative and you figure out, you get resourceful and you figure, okay, fine, like how can I work through this? So yeah, for me, it's like a learning journey. It's sort of taking me along the journey that I want to go on.
I think that's fantastic actually that you feel like the box isn't totally checked because it gives you room to grow. It gives you somewhere to go. Like you're on the path, you're doing it. But you still have something unfolding in front of you that you get to curate and create along the way.
Right.
With so many lessons. I think that's so powerful. I think it's really cool just to kind of tie back to everything we're talking about here that, it was like your personal life mission to be that person centered around growth. And now you're doing it through the lens of acquisitions. And that's why it's so great to have you here today, because we're here to tell acquisition stories. We're here to humanize what that experience is like. And I think you've just done a fantastic job of really showing the technical side of things, but also the personal sides of things. So I very much appreciate hearing your full story and getting your honest take on everything.
Well, thanks, Sarah. Thanks for having me, and hopefully this is useful for other folks on this journey as well.
I think so. And if anyone wants to reach out to you, is there like a way that they can find you or learn a little bit more about ML Beta?
Yeah, the best place I would say is LinkedIn.
Okay.
Go to LinkedIn and just search for Byanker, Bayanker. That's my last name. There are just a handful of folks with that last name, so you'll find me. Uh, and yeah, just feel free to reach out to me. I'm glad. I'm a big believer in giving back, and I've gotten a lot from many different great people. And if I can help anybody, give them some advice or serve as a sounding board, give me a shout.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much. I've had a great time talking to you today and can't wait to see what you get up to next
All
and
right, Sarah.
how that journey goes for you. So thank you.
Yeah, thanks very much.